All right. Should we do this thing? I have to.
We
go see a pig.
Gonna go see it. What is it? Gotta go see need to go see the pig about a cigarette or whatever. Porco Rosso does in that movie. I've never seen it, but I feel like there's a lot of references on podcasts I listen to pigs smoking a lot in that movie.
He chain smokes like a motherfucker. It's great. He also flies a plane. Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music through the lens of our favorite artists' discographies. I'm Matt Kistler.
And I'm Troy Sennett.
And this week we're doing something a little different. Well, we've already kind of done an episode like this, but since it is right around mid-year, or actually it will be just after the beginning of July when you're hearing this, we are doing kind of a mid-year top albums of the year so far list thing. It's similar to what we did at the end of last year. And yeah, we're going to just run down kind of the albums we've been vibing with so far this year. We're going to specifically talk at length about our top 5 favorite albums so far, kind of maybe accepting things that came out. We were recording this the Sunday before this episode comes out, so anything that came out the Friday before you're hearing this, may or may not have made lists based on proximity. But at any rate,
it's actually unfair how many good things came out 2 days ago.
It was
make
absurd.
A list like this.
And I did put one of them on my list because I couldn't not. And we'll see how I feel about that in like 3 weeks. But I never feel good about any list I make except some of our discography rankings. So,
but not all of them.
This will all be different next week. It's fine.
Yeah.
But this is a snapshot of how we feel right now.
Yeah, the good thing is you don't have to think about it again until the end of the year when we do this again with more albums and more pressure.
Troy, where are you at with listening this year? Like, how much new music have you consumed?
Let's see. I should have had this stat ready, but let's see. It looks like I've listened to about 80 albums and about 26 EPs this year, so I'm a little over 100 new releases, which is a lot for me, but I've kind of like steered back into trying to listen to a lot of new music as opposed to podcasts constantly this year. So yeah, I think this is high for me. I don't know, what are you, where are you at?
I think I'm right about in the same realm. I've only been tracking on a list things that I qualify as albums. Some of them are kind of borderline, like they're 5 songs, but one song is 18 minutes long or whatever. But somewhere in the realm of like 100 new releases. I have 99 albums on my factory list though, which is I think more than usual. I usually bail out on keeping track about 2.5 months into the year. This is the best I've ever done. And it's because I have a little app to do it instead of just entering things on a spreadsheet, which is what I would normally do. And then I would lose it, et cetera, et cetera.
How many of those do you think you've listened to more than once?
Not a lot. I shouldn't say not a lot. A fair number of them. I've definitely listened to everything that has made my list right now more than a couple of times, or more than once at very least. But the one that snuck in from Friday, I have only listened to twice, but that's just because it did come out on Friday.
Yeah, no, I always think that's hard. Like when I want to like check out a lot of new music and keep current with everything. Like I like a lot of bands and there's a lot of new stuff coming out, and I'm always like taking recommendations from forums or from you or whatever. And so it's like, and so it is hard. It is hard to make sure I'm like trying to listen deeply to stuff. But I feel like that's something I want to be better at for the rest of the year. Or just generally. But then I'm like, but then I'm missing stuff that I think is probably cool.
This is the tough balance that I have yet to strike with myself. I often find myself going, well, I'm not listening to enough stuff. And then I'm like, but I listen to so much more than most people. And as a result, like I'm not like revisiting things. I found kind of that a lot of actually I would almost say everything that made my top 5 and a lot of my honorable mentions here are albums where I listened to it, and even though I knew I had other things to move on to, I kind of wanted to just put it on again after I heard it the first time, which is like kind of a rare experience for me. If people look at the way that I like pseudo review music on the little tracking app that we use, like I give a lot of 4.5 stars because I like a lot of shit. But like I think there have been several like standout albums for me this year where I've been like, oh, like I feel moved by this in a way that like I know I want to return to it. And frankly, like if I didn't have other stuff to do right now, I would just like play or like start at track 1 again. And I feel like that's kind of become the marker of something that is going to have staying power for me. I know that you tend to think similarly in that like if you're returning to something a bunch, that tends to be a good indication that like that should be, you know, towards the top of your list or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could do this in Last FM, but I have a like a view set up in Marvis, the music app that I use. That I can just easily see of releases that come out this year. What have I listened to the most? Just at one click, and so most of my top 5 are like also my top 5 most played albums of the year.
Yeah,
which I mean that makes sense that those things should align.
Totally.
Yeah. Do you think it's been a good year for music so far? If you feel like there's been a lot of stuff you've liked or any disappointments, or I don't know, how do you rate the year so far?
I think it's been a great year so far. I haven't. So making a Q1 list when I did the episode with like what you like and making this list have both been difficult because nothing has necessarily jumped out at me as, oh, this is my favorite thing I've heard this year. And like that sounds disparaging, but really what it's been is I've just had a lot of moments where I'm like, oh yeah, this is really great. Like I said, I'm doling out a lot of like 4.5, some 5-star ratings on these albums. Some of those 5-star ratings are maybe a little misguided. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I like that Anxious album a lot. It's maybe not one of my favorite albums of the year, all told, out of the 100 or so I've listened to. But it's still really good. But I did give that 5 stars right out the gate, and I've listened to it like 1.5 times. So like, but honestly, like I really think that like consistently most of the stuff I've listened to, I've really vibed with. So like, I think it's a great year for music. Honestly, do you feel about the same way, or do you feel like there's something else going on?
I'm a little cooler on the year in general so far. I think I've liked a decent amount of stuff, but there's been very few things that I have out and out like loved. A few of them, obviously, I will talk about.
Yeah,
but I think, and maybe I was wondering if maybe some of this is because we're doing a podcast where we listen to a lot of great albums, and like, and I kind of listen to a lot of my deep listening is stuff I'm doing for the podcast, and I'm listening to over and over again, and so it's like, well, I spent a lot of time thinking about like the Black Parade and, you know, Siren Song of the Counterculture and, really, really, truly great 5-star albums this year. And like, it's hard for new stuff to compare to stuff that I've been listening to for 20 years or 15, 20 years. But it's also just my mental space of thinking about and evaluating music is a lot more dedicated to older music this year than it has ever been in the past. So I think those are all factors. And the other one just being like when we'll do a little most anticipated thing at the end of this, and I think the rest of this year is going to be full of really awesome stuff. So there's a lot to be excited about, even if there's only been a couple things this year that have really knocked me out.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to the most anticipated section, but I have a feeling that I feel like I might know what my favorite album of this year is going to be. I think I might know my top 3, and most of them haven't come out yet.
Okay, so that's a bold prediction. We will revisit.
We'll revisit.
In
I'm
December.
gonna be so wrong. That said, with the way that people are releasing albums nowadays, that being like half of the album comes out before the full album comes out, I feel like with those kinds of album rollouts, I feel like I've got a good idea of what I'm gonna feel about the album when I've heard 6 out of 13 songs. I don't know.
I don't like this. It needs to stop. Like,
I know, same.
Three singles legally, I'm passing that law. 3 singles maximum. And I try not to. We talked about this. I don't know if it was in the episode or not, but like, if it's like a band I love, I'll listen to the single. If it's a band I don't care about at all, sometimes I'll listen to the single if it sounds interesting. If it's a band I like, I am generally trying to like not listen to any singles, and just looking at the what's on my most anticipated. There's multiple of these albums that I have not heard and not listened to the single, and probably will not, and hopefully I'll just be able to go in to the album blind. But that's for the future. We should talk about the past right now, or
let's
past
talk
6
about
months.
the past. Yeah.
We're doing 5. We did 10 on the end of the year, and we'll do 10 at the end of the year this year, but we're doing 5 for the mid-year. So you want to start? What's your number 5?
Yeah, so my number 5 is the album that I was referring to many times in the lead up to this talk here, which is Laura Stevenson's Late Great, which came out this past Friday. I was kind of floored by this album. I love Laura Stevenson. I've enjoyed pretty much everything she's put out. Be it a solo album or a collab album with someone else. That covers album that she did with Jeff Rosenstock a while back was really fun. But yeah, Late Great is just this like, I hate to reductively say divorce album, but it's a little bit of divorce album. That's like, that is a thing that I am drawn to in many, many ways. Just because like it's an experience that is common. But it is harrowing. Like it's a common experience that a lot of people have, but it is for many people like one of the worst things you can go through. And like, this album is like really like self-reflective. From a musical standpoint, it's just like beautifully produced. There's a lot of great horn stuff. We all know I love that. And like, yeah, I feel like Laura's just kind of in top form from a songwriting and arrangement perspective. And like, I anticipate that this will hopefully make my top 10 at the end of the year. I had not listened to anything going into this one, which I think kind of gave it an extra wow factor, kind of going back to what we were just talking about. But yeah, I think this is a really special album. I think you had mentioned that you think it might be her best since Wheel. I think it is. Like, I might be sure of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only reason this is not on my top 5 is that I have not had a chance to sit down and read the lyrics yet. I've listened to it a couple times. I had it on in the car on the way to a show the other day, and I had it like listening to it on Friday. But like, I think it is a musically, arrangement wise, like you were saying, I think it's a beautiful record. It's kind of just like a real achievement for her. Like what you said, I think it is initially at least my favorite thing she's done since Wheel, which is like a monumental, untouchable classic to me. If she ever tops that, I mean, I'm not saying that she can't, but like that's a tall order. My initial impressions of this album are that it's really special, and I'm very much looking forward to sitting down with the lyrics in the coming days.
I'm sure you won't be disappointed. I do a lot of my first listens like while I'm at work on like Friday. And this was one of the ones where I rarely do this, but I was like, I would catch like a line, and I would just go to Bandcamp and like pop open the lyrics for the song, and like just consistently great. It is a gutting record, it turns out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my number 5. What do you have?
Number 5 for me is Forward by First Day Back. This is an emo band from California that, against all logic when listening to it, released this record in 2025 and not 1995. This really just feels like something that I would have found on somebody's random blog spot in 2010 when I was like digging into what is, who I love Mineral. Who did Mineral? Who were they influenced by? Who were the Get Up Kids influenced by? Like, who was Braid influenced by? Like, this feels like something that came out of the 90s. And like, there's something to be said for innovation and making something new and fresh sounding, but I think there's also something to be said for like making something that just sounds like it was teleported out of the past. It's like the finest throwback emo record that I've ever heard. And it's been really fun to dig into this one and just feel like I am discovering something new and old at the same time.
Yeah, when I saw you had listened to this and you were just like, yeah, this is like basically perfect emo revival. I was like, well, I need to check that out immediately, and it's incredible. Like, I'm amazed it didn't make my list, honestly. But like, it was one of those bands where I was like, okay, like, can I buy like this on at least CD? And sure enough, it's like pay $1 or more on Bandcamp, and that is your only option for purchase. And I was like, well, hopefully I'll be able to support this band in other ways, but I guess I'll just buy it on Bandcamp Friday next week. Or no, they don't have one in July. Boo.
Somebody will put this out on vinyl.
Somebody will put this out on vinyl. It has to happen. But yeah, it's an incredible throwback record. And like that is not easy to pull off.
Yeah, just I don't know. Yeah, the way that the vocals are like yelping and but also like like deeply emotional, and just the way the guitars twinkle just the right amount. Like it's not like emo revival. It's like, I don't know. It just feels older than it is in a good way.
This band is influenced by their contemporaries, like influencers is kind of what it shakes out to. Yeah,
exactly. All right, what is your number 4?
Number 4 was on my top 5 list at the end of Q1. I think it was number 2. And I've talked about this record on this podcast, so I won't go too in depth. But it is Clipping's Dead Channel Sky. For those who don't know, Clipping is an experimental hip hop band consisting of 3 dudes, one of whom is David Diggs, probably one of my favorite MCs, period. He is just an incredibly talented dude, a really great lyricist, can emulate other people's flows, but also has his own like kind of trademark style and really kind of shifts back and forth between the two pretty seamlessly, all the while like kind of backed by these 2 like experimental music nerds, which is maybe my favorite like part of the equation here. Like everything just kind of melds into this really like not gratingly off the wall style of hip hop, but like it is definitely different than most of what you would hear when you think about like, you know, a hip hop record coming out in 2025. And there are plenty of people out there making like really cool like hip hop with influences coming from all over the world. But like this is particularly on brand for me, which is why I think it works out so well.
Yeah, I think I kind of said something about this when we talked about it when it was your random recommendation a couple weeks ago. But I just love how they're able to use sound design as like as a storytelling device and like scene setting, and to kind of build the world of this record, this sort of like cyberpunk dystopia album. It also, I mean, David Diggs' rapping is just insane on it as usual.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, very good one. We'll do a clipping series on this show someday.
Honestly, I would love to. I'm so like I'm bad at talking about genres that I'm like that I haven't been, you know, knee deep in since junior high, but I would love to talk more about them.
Yeah, they're great.
What's your number 4?
Number 4 for me is Coheed and Cambria's Vaxis Act 3, The Father of Make Believe. This is the 10th, 11th Coheed and Cambria album, the third in their sort of, I don't even know, second arc of whatever their epic, space sci-fi concept album series. I don't know the Coheed lore that well, but I do know their music pretty well. And I think that this is their most adventurous album yet. I feel like they're playing with lots of different genres and influences. They got their typical post-hardcore and like metal stuff, but they get into synthy stuff. They get into like pop influence stuff. There's a song on this that I feel like is a straight up like MCR homage and My Chemical Romance homage. And there's another that feels like they're pulling from like Walk the Moon or maybe even Taylor Swift a little bit. And so, yeah, and there's great acoustic stuff. I think Claudio Sanchez, the vocalist, sounds better than he ever has on this album. It's beautifully produced. Not that Coheed has never been like an all-time favorite for me, But I always like their stuff, and I just found myself going back to this one over and over and over again this year.
Yeah, I kind of fell off Coheed at some point. And like that's no fault of theirs. It's just that I couldn't keep up, I guess. But like listening to this year, like kind of brought me back in, and I'm gonna probably do a discography run through on my own at some point here, because the fact that they arrived, like this is a really cool record. And you know, kind of based on what you've said about it, it sounds like it is an unusual record in their discography. But I would love to see what the lead up to this was like. But yeah, it's really cool that they're like so like kind of on their sleeve, pulling from all these influences and like really pulling it off, honestly. Like sometimes bands do that and it just is a mess, but this really pulls together into honestly a great album.
Yeah, I would say instead of going back and doing a full Coheed discography run, start with the Vaxxus one. Like just do the 3 Vaxxus albums, because I think that's where they find their mojo again. And I like a couple of the pre-Vaxxus things. Kind of they have this like a middle period of their discography that is, I think, kind of up and down. And I like some of it. I like one that a lot of people don't like. We'll do a Coheed series someday too, I promise. Yeah. But I think
we're gonna have to read Vaxxus, a lot of comics for that one.
A lot of comics that are very hard to find and very expensive. Yeah. But I think the 3 Vaxxus albums make a really nice adventure to listen to now.
Nice. All right, I will do that.
Cool. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is another album that we have, in fact, mentioned on this podcast, but it bears repeating. It is Arm's Length's There's a Whole World Out There. I love this band, and it still feels too early to say like where this is in relation to Never Before Seen, Never Again Found. But like I'm going to say it's at least on par with that record, and I really loved that record. I think there are maybe more standout songs on this record, but it's solid all the way through. It's a little bit gutting in spots. It's just wonderfully put together. Arm's Length hasn't missed so far, and I frankly believe that they are going to release many more great albums just based on how like consistent their run has been so far. They should take a break from touring at some point though, and like take a nap or something. I think
they are on the road a lot.
They really are.
Do you see this as like a growth album for them or a refining album for them, if that makes sense?
That does make sense. I think it's a little more of a refining. And I like that's not to say that there isn't growth on here. I think there is like some areas of growth, but like I think overall like they found something that they're really good at, and they're not the only ones making this kind of music, obviously, but like they're some of the best doing it of their contemporaries. Like no shade to Charmer, but like they toured with Charmer on this album, and like that Charmer album is not nearly as good as this, and it's definitely like going for some of the same stuff, but just not at as high of a level. I don't know. Do you feel like it's maybe more growth, or do you also feel like it's kind of leaning more on refinement of kind of what they've already been doing?
Yeah, definitely more refinement. I think if there's a like a knock against this record, it's that it is not different enough. They're not trying enough new stuff, I think, from what they were doing on the first record. And like I like the first record a lot. I like this record a lot. But if they make another one that sounds exactly like this, I think it'll start feeling kind of tired. But obviously that's a couple years in the future, and I think this album is very good, but multiple times listeners was like, oh, I wonder if I could just kind of shuffle these 2 albums and I wouldn't really hear too much of a difference.
I think that's totally fair. Yeah, and I would definitely like to see them take a swing on the next one for sure. And I think they have the chops to do it. I think they just need to figure out what that future direction is.
Agreed, for sure.
Which maybe they already have that in mind. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you got for number 3?
Number 3 for me is Jason Isbell's Foxes in the Snow. This is a sort of a return to the bare bones, stripped back, just one guy with an acoustic guitar version of Jason Isbell's sound. Something he hasn't really done since, for a full album at least, since Southeastern, and even that one has like at least one kind of full band banger on it. This is we were talking about divorce records earlier. This is a real divorce record.
This is a real divorce record.
Yeah, and it is almost too open for comfort. Like this is one of those albums where I kind of feel like I'm seeing a little more than I should of a person's inner life, and particularly just because his ex-wife Amanda Shires is also a public figure in the country music world. She played in his band for a long time. They were always on stage together and doing stuff together, and like there's a messiness and an openness that's like part of the power of the album, but it also is like should you be saying these things out loud? Should these be in a song? Is there like I'm wondering about like the power dynamics of like his side of the story being the one that gets all this amplification and hers doesn't. But I also think like the songs for the most part are just really, really good, and I always gonna love Jason Isbell's voice. And so it ends up ranking high to me. I keep going back to it, even though, like I said, there's some discomfort to it, and that's, I think, part of what works about it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, and I totally understand the concern about the weight of one person's side of the story versus the other, especially in this particular situation. But like, I think as long as you are not taking the work as gospel on what is going on, then that's fine. But I know not everybody thinks about things that way, so that's in the court of public opinion. It might be a different thing, but yeah, I think it's really an excellent album overall. Like, Jason Isbell's always been a great songwriter, and like kind of hearing him in this more stripped back form is kind of a nice treat, honestly.
Yeah, I don't really think anyone's put out a better song this year than True Believer.
That's honestly fair.
Yeah. All right, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is not an album that we have talked about on this podcast at all. But it is from an artist that I do want to cover at some point. It is Bon Iver's Sable Fable. Speaking of albums that had rollouts that involved releasing half the album before it came out, this one was actually kind of particularly interesting because there was a whole to-do made about, for anybody who doesn't know, this is probably old news to most people, but last year, Bon Iver came back with a huge like campaign around this 4-song, if you count the like noisy intro thing that happens, EP called Sable. And it just seemed so odd for Justin Vernon to come out with this stellar, to be clear, EP, have all this like marketing push behind it, and just have it be like kind of a digital thing that like you can pay a few bucks for, which like most people were like, there's an album. I know it. And it turned out that that Sable was in fact just the first part of this larger work called Sable Fable. So it's effectively an EP and then an album attached to that. But the thing about Sable was that it was kind of a version of Bon Iver that like we hadn't really heard much of lately, which is, kind of in the same way that Jason Isbell kind of stripped things back. Like, this was like mostly just an acoustic guitar and Justin Vernon singing some really, stellar songs without a lot of the production tricks that he's kind of, come to be known for over the last few albums. And I thought that was great. I was like, I'll take a full on Bon Iver, folk thing again. But then the rest dropped with the Fable side of things. And overall, this is just kind of a like wonderful melding of like kind of Justin Vernon's career thus far, as Bon Iver specifically, but little bits of his other projects as well. You get kind of the folk from like the early work, the soul that's always just kind of been behind all of that. You get some of the like the fun production stuff that he's been working with since most of his career, but like really kind of hit a peak at with 22 a Million, which, full disclosure, is one of my favorite albums of all time. And like it's all kind of backed by this like kind of central theme of like being a love record and not being sad about love record, which I love for him. And yeah, I feel like this has really like kind of reinvigorated my love for this project. I kind of worried that it had just kind of gone away. I know Justin Vernon isn't really playing shows, but I hope he changes his mind about that, because I would really love to see some of this stuff live.
Yeah, same. I just want to see Bon Iver in general. I've never seen him.
Incredible live show. It is a crime that he is not touring anymore.
Yeah,
or at least not at the moment.
Two things that I really like about this album. One is that this like EP and then album release format, it feels like a sneaky way to do a double album without actually doing a double album.
Yes,
because the Sable tracks do have a distinctly different feel, different kind of set of production ideas going on than the Fable stuff. And so I liked that as a construction. I really love the ridiculous vinyl thing where the Sable EP is 12-inch pressed at 45 RPM, and then the Fable album is at 33. I think that's extremely funny.
It's so good. I hate it, but I'm also willing to excuse it because it is so funny.
Well, I bought a turntable that I don't have to take the platter off to change the speed anymore, so it's easier.
Yeah, I'm still operating on the moving the platter one. So I haven't put this one on that one yet. I do have an automatic one in the front room. It's just less nice.
Yeah, but I think this is like pretty easily like the happiest Bon Iver record. But there's just like a buoyancy to the sound. Especially like kind of the latter half of the album. There's a rhythm being the one I'm particularly thinking of.
That might be my favorite track on the record, honestly.
Yeah, it just floats and bubbles and soars in a way that like I don't think I've ever heard Justin Vernon do before on a song. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, it really is. We've talked about this with a lot of bands, like bands that kind of establish their sound being like kind of dour and sad, like taking a turn into not necessarily doing that and having a complicated relationship with that. Like it's really refreshing to see Bon Iver like doing a record like this and it being as good as it is.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, what you got?
Number 2 for me is not an album. It is an EP, and it is not new music. It is reimaginings. This is Burst and Decay Volume 3 by the Wonder Years. This is the third entry in their ongoing series of acoustic, sometimes, or at least softer full band versions of their catalog. And they're just kind of picking and choosing any song from their past that they think has a good, they can do a good version of. And this is the first one that includes a new song that's called Junebug, which is a really wonderful song with some uncanny relevance to my life.
Yeah.
And it's also they brought in the Little Kruta string ensemble for more of this one. I can't remember if they were on the previous ones or if they were just on the live one, but the string parts on arrangements on this are amazing. This is my favorite of these EPs. It's more lush, more audacious, more interesting, and there's some really cool features. Joe Taylor from Knuckle Puck is on there. Ryland from Origami Angel is on a song. It is just a really, really nice, like if I'm always in the mood for the Wonder Years, but sometimes I want the softer stuff, and this has just been a great thing to put on. And also we saw them on this tour and it was spectacular.
It was an incredible show. Like definitely one of the best shows I've been to this year. Yeah, this EP is really spectacular. Like this whole series has been really cool, but like this feels like a real apex, and like having a new song and having it be as good as it is just kind of the like cherry on top of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, it is time for number ones. We're going through these fast, but that's fine.
Yeah. You all should listen to these albums, we think, is the kind of crux of this.
Exactly. What is your number one?
My number one is the same as my number one at the end of Q1. Again, I have talked about this on the podcast before, but I feel like it bears repeating many, many times. My number one is Macy Stewart's When the Distance is Blue. I won't belabor it too much since I have talked about this record in so many different places. But it is a largely born out of like kind of improvising and like a return to the piano for Macy. Macy Stewart, for those who don't know, is in a couple of local bands, most notable of which is Phenom. She's well known as a violinist, particularly has done strings for people like Japanese Breakfast and many other notable people, and I don't have the list in front of me, and I'm sorry that I forgot. But she's a really stellar violinist, does a lot of collaborations with other people in kind of the greater experimental music sphere in Chicago. But this record is just kind of really special. It is very exploratory. It has a bunch of like really phenomenal guests on it. Leah Cole plays on this record. Who released my favorite album of last year. Pretty sure Macy Stewart was on Normal Sounds at some point. Whitney Johnson is also on this record, a stellar viola player from Chicago, and another like very great experimental musician. But like this album just has such a like a playful quality to it in many ways. It feels like a record that like strives to understand why we enjoy wordless music. And there's a lot of playing with like space between sounds on this record. There's prepared piano, which is like one of my favorite things on the planet. And like, I don't know, like it's just a really incredibly put together record. Like I keep using the word experimental, and it definitely is experimental, but it's like, it's a pleasant listen. It's kind of in the ambient-ish sphere, but I would argue that I wouldn't want to fold it into that because I don't think that I wouldn't put it on for background music. Like if you're going to listen to this record, I would recommend it be kind of a focused listen to like kind of feel out like the different textures that are happening and like, you know, appreciate the like decay of instruments and the silence between sounds. I'm trying to make John Cage's spirit proud right now. I don't know if it's going well or not, but yeah, this Macy Stewart record is phenomenal. Like I don't know if it's necessarily like number one with a bullet. Like this is leagues better than anything I've talked about today, but like I think about this record a lot, and it's still obviously very high, in very high regard for me at this point.
Yeah, I like what you said about this, like not really working as background music, that you need to engage with it a little bit more, which is always like, I feel like with ambient music, it can kind of go either way, or, you know, it's depending on the way that it's constructed. But yeah, I agreed. This did not work as a background music album for me. I got a little lost in it, but when I went back and listened to it kind of with more attention, I think it is really beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Talk to me about your number one.
My number one is, unsurprisingly, The Quiet Year by Cesalo. Again, something I've recommended on our Random Rex segment a month or two ago. And this is an album that is from Rocky Vodolato, vocalist of Waxwing and renowned solo artist who I really like a lot. I like his solo records a lot. This is an exploration of his grief following the tragic loss of his child. Which is obviously a tough subject to listen to and to think about too much, but I think it's just the kind of the perfect melding of basically like a therapy session of sorts with this loud fuzzy indie rock sound and just layers and layers of guitar distortion, really well crafted melodies. The songs are awesome, and they're catchy despite their subject matter. But then there's these moments that he is like literally doing like scream therapy into the microphone, and there's this, you know, wordless sounds, that these pained yells that he does, and it's one of those things, like in a very different way than the Jason Isbell record, feels like I'm listening to something that's too close and too private and that I shouldn't be allowed to hear, and that he was able to put that out on a record and be okay letting it out into the world is, I think, very impressive. It's a kind of a singular album in that way.
Yeah. I have not yet listened to this record because I feel like I have to be in the right headspace for it. I don't know what that is. So someday I'm just going to have to throw it on because I really do want to listen to it very badly. It might be a one and done, but it also might not be. So we'll find out. But this sounds like a really, really special record, and I hesitate to say I'm looking forward to hearing it, but I am looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing about it is like I totally get why, we talked a little bit about this album before in, comparison to the Pianos Become the Teeth, Lack Long After, or the Mount Eerie record or whatever. And like, I think like those albums are, challenging in their grief and like they're great records, but I totally see why you don't want to go back to those. This album is like I said, it's not weirdly, but like it is, these songs are catchy. And like, I do keep wanting to put it back on, even though I haven't listened to it like a super ton. It's like I don't think it's my most listened to album this year. But it is I'm drawn back to the songs all the time because they're very good.
Oh yeah.
All right. So that's our list. We should throw out some honorable mentions because there has been a lot of good stuff out this year.
Yeah.
Obviously I like the Laura Stevenson record. A lot of stuff that was on your list is on my honorable mentions. I do want to shout out Winona Fighter. I think put out a really good album this year. Our friends in Spitalfield have a new EP out, their first music in a very long time that is awesome. Let's see, a couple others. I think the Lambrini Girls album is really cool and really different from like any other band I've ever heard, probably. Excited to see them at Riot Fest. I wish they weren't playing at the same time as the Ataris, so we'll have to figure out how to be in two places at once for that.
Yeah.
And then I want to shout out Empty Heaven, the newish project from Anthony Sanders. Put out a box set of a 4-cassette box set this year called Egg Song. That is a collection of B-sides. It's 4 albums. One is B-sides from his album from last year, Laughing. And then there's a couple of other things that are sort of, reissues of older stuff or stuff that he had recorded quite a few years ago and never put out. It is just a really, really cool product. I think he's sold out of them, but if he's not, highly recommend it. It's like a handmade, wood burned box. It's awesome. And of course the songs are great.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. What do you got for some honorable mentions? What do you want to shout out?
I have so many. I'm gonna try to either go very quickly or maybe skip some. One of the first one I have on my list was actually my original number 5, and it's Pirouette by Model Actress. I've talked about that on the podcast a little bit. Still a really stellar record. I'm definitely going to be going to see those guys in October when they come through. But another is Apparitions Volcanic Reality. My buddy Igor is the synthesist for this band, but they're like a kind of noise rock free jazz trio. Are not almost never in the same place at the same time. I believe 2 of the members live in Texas. At least one of the members lives in Texas. I think one lives in New York, and then Igor's here. They just toured around Texas, and I'm a little jealous that they didn't come here. It'll happen someday, though. But yeah, really, really neat record if you're not turned off by the idea of noise rock mixed with free jazz. Another is a record that came out this past Friday, Greet Death's Die in Love. Greet Death are, I think, better than ever on this one. I see great things for this band going forward. I also have Japanese Breakfast for Melancholy Brunettes and Sad Women, a record that I don't like quite as much as its predecessor, but Jubilee is really hard to top, and it still is a really stellar record. Also got the Julian Baker and Torres collab record. I don't like it as much as either of their solo material, but I think it's a really fun combo, and it sounds like they had a blast making this record, so like I support it.
Yeah, I wish I liked that one more. It has not grown on me, unfortunately.
There are some really stellar songs on there, and then there are some that I haven't thought about since the time I put it on. One I did like a lot, though, that's kind of adjacent in that it's like kind of an Americana influenced record, is Hayden Pendigo's I'll Be Waving As You Drive Away. Ambient Americana is such a weird phrase, but I find myself listening to a lot of it, and Hayden is doing some of the best of that. I did not know who he was prior to finding out that he's doing a collab with Chatpile, which is going to be wild. I have no idea what it's going to sound like, and I have no idea when it's going to come out. Otherwise, it would be anticipated for the rest of this year. but it might be next year. It might never come out. Who can say? But the last couple I want to give a shout out to are there's a Claire Rousey and Gretchen Korsmo collab record. Claire Rousey, one of my favorite like current artists out there, does work across a multitude of genres. I don't know much about Gretchen Korsmo, but this collab record is just a really like nice ambient record, one that kind of does work as background music, but again, I would recommend a focused listen if you're going to check it out. And then my last one is Black Taffy's Out Moon, which I often describe as lo-fi beats but good, because that's what it is, because a lot of lo-fi beats are bad. But Black Taffy is incredibly good at making music in that genre. I showed it to some coworkers and they were like, this is kind of creepy, but I like it. And that's how I know it's excellent. Yeah, it's coworker cool. Scaring music.
I got to check that out. Oh, neither of us mentioned the Callous Cowboys. That album's wild and really cool.
An incredible record. Probably could have made my list had things gone slightly differently.
Yeah, well, it's got another chance at the end of the year.
It does.
Yeah, so there's also, like we kind of mentioned at the beginning, tons of cool stuff coming out this year. We should just shout out a few of our most anticipated albums for the rest of the year. I'm going to say this new Moving Mountains album that is already out, but I have not listened to yet. That's certainly going to be awesome. Everyone who's heard it seems to say that it is. There is a new album from La Dispute coming out later this year, which I've listened to one song from and loved, and then everyone else was, or I liked, and everyone else was like, oh, the next single is amazing. So I'm waiting on that one. New Motion City soundtrack, new Yellow Card, Hot Mulligan, Pool Kids, Dave Hawes, just kind of just a lot of bands I really, really love. Oh, The Starting Line, I forgot about that one. A lot of bands from our teenage years are coming back and putting out new records this fall, plus some new bands that are wonderful too. What's on your most anticipated list?
So on my most anticipated list is the newest from Your Smith, called The Rub. It's out in September. Half that record is out now, and I've listened to the songs that have been released so far several times, and I'm pretty confident that this is going to be pretty high on my list at the end of the year. Maybe the rest of the songs suck, but I kind of doubt it. For those who don't know, Caroline Smith Your Smith used to go by Caroline Smith, which is the name of the actual artist. Stuff happened, and now it's a different act. But this reminds me an awful lot of some of my favorite Caroline Smith, or a lot of my favorite Caroline Smith stuff in some ways. I'm also looking forward to the new La Dispute. It's going to be great. I am stopping listening to singles. I did listen to the one that you haven't heard, that everybody has said is good. It is pretty freaking good. My buddy Igor, who is in Apparitions, has a record coming out very soon called What It Means to Be a Body. He makes solo music as Wounds. He does like a lot of cool synth stuff. I need to ask him how to actually make a modular synth make cool sounds and not just fiddle around with it. But beyond that, the new M. Sage record, Tender Waiting, I'm looking forward to. The single is great. I'm going to abstain from listening to any other singles. There is a new The World is a Beautiful Place and I Am No Longer Afraid to Die album that sounds like it's going to mostly be a hardcore album. It's called Dreams of Being Dust. I'm very excited for that one. Also going to abstain from further singles on that because I don't really want the rest spoiled for me.
I thought you were going to end with the new Rise Against album, which neither of us had on our list, even though we are contractually obligated by our vows to each other to cover on this show, despite our reservations.
I will listen to that album because of that, and also because I will give any new Rise Against album a chance.
Yeah, absolutely, same.
But I am not anticipating it, so... I am anticipating it insofar that I know that I will listen to it, but it is not high on my list of things that I am excited to listen to later this year.
Yeah, same. Who knows? Maybe it'll surprise us.
It could be great. I fully accept that it could.
Yeah. All right. No random Rex because this entire episode is random Rex.
Listen to all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, we got in and out fast, so you can go see Porco Rosso.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's the end of the episode. So follow us on Instagram at noisefloorpod, or find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com. And in the next week we will be back talking about the hotelier. I guess we've already recorded one episode of our hotelier series, but it
has thrown me off a little bit.
A little bit. So next week we're going to talk about It Never Goes Out and some of the other early hotelier stuff. Great band. We are very excited about this series.
Very excited.